You know what's crazy? That all of this is real. Don't you think so?
Meaning what?
Like all this AI stuff and all
Like
this
it's
Bay
actually
Area, yeah, that it's happened. Like, isn't it straight out of science fiction? Here's something which I predict will happen. That's a prediction. I maintain that as AI becomes more powerful, then people will change their behaviors. And we will see all kinds of unprecedented things which are not happening right now.
That was Ilya Sutskever, the man who co-founded OpenAI, the man Sam Altman tried to push out, then begged to stay. The chief scientist who built the systems most of the world is now using. He left OpenAI to start his own company, Safe Superintelligence, and went silent. He just broke his silence. And what he says is happening is unlike anything you have heard from anyone else in this industry.
Here's a perspective that I think might be true. So the way ML used to work is that people would just tinker with stuff and try to get interesting results. That's what's been going on in the past. Then the scaling insight arrived, right? Scaling laws, GPT-3, and suddenly everyone realized we should scale. And it's just this is an example of how language affects thought. Scaling is just one word, but it's such a powerful word because it informs people what to do. They say, okay, let's try to scale things. And so you say, okay, so what are we scaling? And pre-training was the thing to scale. It was a particular scaling recipe.
Yes.
The big breakthrough of pre-training is the realization that this recipe is good. So you say, hey, if you mix some compute with some data into a neural net of a certain size, you will get results, and you will know that it will be better if you just scale the recipe up. And this is also great. Companies love this because it gives you a very low risk way of investing your resources. Right? It's much harder to invest your resources in research. Compare that. If you research, you need to have go forth researchers and research and come up with something, versus get more data, get more compute, you'll get something from pre-training. And indeed, it looks like based on various things some people say on Twitter, maybe it appears that Gemini have found a way to get more out of pre-training. At some point, though, pre-training will run out of data. The data is very clearly finite. And so then, okay, what do you do next? Either you do some kind of a souped up pre-training, different recipe from the one we've done before, or you're doing RL, or maybe something else. But now that compute is now very big, in some sense, we are back to the age of research. So maybe here's another way to put it. Up until 2020, from 2012 to 2020, it was the age of research. Now, from 2020 to 2025, it was the age of scaling, or maybe plus minus, let's add error bars to those years, because people say, this is amazing, you gotta scale more, keep scaling, the one word, scaling. But now the scale is so big, is the belief really that, it's so big, but if you had 100x more, everything would be so different? It would be different for sure, but is the belief that if you just 100x the scale, everything would be transformed? I don't think that's true. So it's back to the age of research again, just with big computers.
And there is the man who invented modern AI scaling telling you that scaling is dead. The era from 2020 to 2025 where you just added more chips and more data and the model got smarter is over. Pre-training will run out of data. The recipe stopped working. Companies are spending more than ever and getting less. They are back to the dark, uncertain world of pure research, where the next breakthrough comes from anywhere or nowhere. The man who built it says the easy path is closed. Now, listen to this.
I see. So you're suggesting that the thing you're pointing out with superintelligence is not some finished mind which knows how to do every single job in the economy. Because the way, say, the original, I think, OpenAI charter or whatever defines AGI is it can do every single job, every single thing that a human can do. You're proposing instead a mind which can learn to do every single job.
Yes.
And that is superintelligence. But once you have the learning algorithm, it gets deployed into the world the same way a human laborer might join an organization. Exactly. And it seems like one of these two things might happen. Maybe neither of these happens. One, this super efficient learning algorithm becomes superhuman, becomes as good as you and potentially even better at the task of ML research. And as a result, the algorithm itself becomes more and more superhuman. The other is, even if that doesn't happen, if you have a single model, this is explicitly your vision. If you have a single model or instances of a model which are deployed through the economy, doing different jobs, learning how to do those jobs, continually learning on the job, picking up all the skills that any human could pick up, but actually picking them all up at the same time and then amalgamating the learnings. You basically have a model which functionally becomes super intelligent, even without any sort of recursive self-improvement in software, right? Because you now have one model that can do every single job in the economy, and humans can't merge our minds in the same way. And so do you expect some sort of like intelligence explosion from broad deployment?
I think that it is likely that we will have rapid economic growth. I think the broad deployment, there are two arguments you could make, which are conflicting. One is that, look, if indeed once you get to a point where you have an AI that can learn to do things quickly, and you have many of them, then there will be a strong force to deploy them in the economy, unless there will be some kind of a regulation that stops it, which, by the way, there might be. But I think the idea of very rapid economic growth for some time, I think it's very possible from broad deployment. Then the question is how rapid it's going to be. So I think this is hard to know, because on the one hand, you have this very efficient worker. On the other hand, the world is just really big, and there's a lot of stuff, and that stuff moves at a different speed. But then on the other hand, now the AI could
exactly.
So I think very rapid economic growth is possible. And we will see all kinds of things, like different countries with different rules, and the ones which have the friendlier rules, the economic growth will be faster. Hard to predict.
So there is Ilya describing what superintelligence actually means, not a chatbot that knows more facts. An algorithm that learns any job you put it in front of on the fly while merging that learning across millions of instances at the same time. The factory worker, the lawyer, the radiologist, all being learned simultaneously by the same mind. Humans cannot merge minds, the AI can. He says rapid economic growth is likely. He says regulation might slow it down. He doubts it. Now listen to this.
I maintain that I think most people who work on AI also can't imagine it, because it's too different from what people see on a day-to-day basis. I do maintain, here's something which I predict will happen. That's a prediction. I maintain that as AI becomes more powerful, then people will change their behaviors. And we will see all kinds of unprecedented things which are not happening right now. And I'll give some examples. I think for better or worse, the frontier companies will play a very important role in what happens, as will the government. And the kind of things that I think we'll see, which you see the beginnings of, companies that are fierce competitors starting to collaborate on AI safety. You may have seen OpenAI and Anthropic doing a first small step, but that did not exist. That's actually something which I predicted in one of my talks about 3 years ago, that such a thing will happen. I also maintain that as AI continues to become more powerful, more visibly powerful, there will also be a desire from governments and the public to do something. And I think that this is a very important force of showing the AI. That's number one. Number two, okay, so then the AI is being built. What needs to be done? So one thing that I maintain that will happen is that right now, people who are working on AI, I maintain that the AI doesn't feel powerful because of its mistakes. I do think that at some point the AI will start to feel powerful, actually. And I think when that happens, we will see a big change in the way all AI companies approach safety. They'll become much more paranoid. I think I say this as a prediction that we will see happen. We'll see if I'm right. But I think this is something that will happen because they will see the AI becoming more powerful. Everything that's happening right now, I maintain, is because people look at today's AI and it's hard to imagine the future AI. And there is a third thing which needs to happen. And I think and I'm talking about it in broader terms, not just from the perspective of SSI, because you asked me about our company. But the question is, okay, so then what should the companies aspire to build?
Yeah.
What should they aspire to build? And there has been one big idea that actually everyone has been locked into, which is the self-improving AI. Why did it happen? Because there is fewer ideas than companies. But I maintain that there is something that's better to build. And I think that everyone will actually want that. It's like the AI that's robustly aligned to care about sentient life specifically. I think in particular, there's a case to be made that it will be easier to build an AI that cares about sentient life than an AI that cares about human life alone, because the AI itself will be sentient. And if you think about things like mirror neurons and human empathy for animals, which is, you might argue it's not big enough, but it exists. I think it's an emergent property from the fact that we model others with the same circuit that we use to model ourselves, because that's the most efficient thing to do.
So there's Ilya predicting that the world is about to change in ways nobody can imagine, not because AI takes over, because once it becomes visibly powerful, people will act differently. The frontier companies will get paranoid overnight. Governments will scramble. And the only thing he thinks worth building is an AI aligned to care about sentient life. Not human life, sentient life. Because the AI itself will be sentient, and there will be far more of them than there are of us. Now listen to this.
I am curious, if you say we are back in an era of research, you were there from 2012 to 2020. And do you have, what is now the vibe going to be if we go back to the era of research? For example, even after AlexNet, the amount of compute that was used to run experiments kept increasing, and the size of frontier systems kept increasing. And do you think now that this era of research will still require tremendous amounts of compute? Do you think it will require going back into the archives and reading old papers? What was the vibe of, like, you were at Google and OpenAI and Stanford, these places, when there was like more of a vibe of research? What kind of things should we be expecting in the community?
So one consequence of the age of scaling is that there was this scaling sucked out all the air in the room.
Yeah.
And so because scaling sucked out all the air in the room, everyone started to do the same thing. We got to the point where we are in a world where there are more companies than ideas, by quite a bit. Actually, on that, there is this Silicon Valley saying that says that ideas are cheap, execution is everything. And people say that a lot.
Yeah.
And there is truth to that. But then I saw someone say on Twitter something like, if ideas are so cheap, how come no one's having any ideas? And I think it's true too. I think, like, if you think about a research progress in terms of bottlenecks, there are several bottlenecks. If you go back to one of them is ideas, and one of them is your ability to bring them to life, which might be compute, but also engineering. So if you go back to the 90s, let's say, you had people who had pretty good ideas. And if they had much larger computers, maybe they could demonstrate that their ideas were viable, but they could not. So they could only have very, very small demonstration that did not convince anyone.
Yeah.
So the bottleneck was compute. Then in the age of scaling, computers increased a lot. And of course, there is a question of how much compute is needed, but compute is large. So compute is large enough such that it's like not obvious that you need that much more compute to prove some idea. Like, I'll give you an analogy. AlexNet was built on 2 GPUs. That was the total amount of compute used for it. The transformer was built on 8 to 64 GPUs. No single transformer paper experiment used more than 64 GPUs of 2017, which would be like, what, 2 GPUs of today? So the ResNet, right? Many, like even the you could argue that the like O1 reasoning was not the most compute heavy thing in the world. So there definitely, for research, you need like definitely some amount of compute, but it's far from obvious that you need the absolutely largest amount of compute ever for research. You might argue, And I think it is true that if you want to build the absolutely best system, then it helps to have much more compute. And especially if everyone is within the same paradigm, then compute becomes one of the big differentiators.
So there is the chief scientist of the scaling era admitting that scaling sucked all the air out of the room. Every company doing the same thing, the same recipe, bigger and bigger clusters, and it stopped working. More companies than ideas, trillions of dollars chasing a paradigm that has stalled. He is saying the next breakthrough will not come from the biggest cluster, it will come from a single idea that nobody at the top is currently working on. Now listen to this.
Two words that have shaped everyone's thinking, I maintain. First word, AGI. Second word, pre-training. Let me explain. So the term AGI, why does this term exist? It's a very particular term. Why does it exist? There's a reason. The reason that the term AGI exists is, in my opinion, not so much because it's like a very important, essential descriptor of some end state of intelligence, but because it is a reaction to a different term that existed, and the term is narrow AI. If you go back to ancient history of game playing AI, of checkers AI, chess AI, computer games AI, everyone would say, look at this narrow intelligence. Sure, the chess AI can beat Kasparov, but it can't do anything else. It is so narrow, artificial narrow intelligence. So in response, as a reaction to this, some people said, well, this is not good. It is so narrow. What we need is general AI. General AI, an AI that can just do all the things. The second, and that term just got a lot of traction.
Yeah.
The second thing that got a lot of traction is pre-training, specifically the recipe of pre-training. I think the way people do RL now is maybe is undoing the conceptual imprint of pre-training, but pre-training had the property. You do more pre-training and the model gets better at everything, more or less uniformly.
Yeah.
General AI. Pre-training gives AGI. But the thing that happened with AGI and pre-training is that in some sense they overshot the target. Because if you think about the term AGI, you will realize, and especially in the context of pre-training, you will realize that a human being is not an AGI. Because a human being, yes, there is definitely a foundation of skills. A human being lacks a huge amount of knowledge. Instead, we rely on continual learning. And so then when you think about, okay, so let's suppose that we achieve success and we produce some kind of safe superintelligence. The question is, but how do you define it? Where on the curve of continual learning is it going to be? I produce like a super intelligent 15-year-old that's very eager to go, and you say, okay, they don't know very much at all. The great student, very eager. You go and be a programmer. You go and be a doctor. Go and learn. So you could imagine that the deployment itself will involve some kind of a learning trial and error period. It's a process, as opposed to you drop the finished thing.
So that is Ilya Sutskever, the man who built the systems running inside every major AI company on Earth, the man who saw what was coming so clearly that he walked away from OpenAI to start a company called Safe Superintelligence. And what he is telling you is this: AGI is the wrong word, pre-training is the wrong recipe, the scaling era is over. What is coming is not a finished mind that does every job, it is a learning algorithm, a single model that can take any job a human can do. Learn it on the fly, and merge that knowledge across millions of instances at once. He calls it rapid economic growth. He calls it a strong force to deploy it everywhere. He says regulation might slow it. He doubts it. He has stopped warning the public. He is racing to build it. And the safe path he describes is to build an AI aligned not to humans, but to sentient life in general. Because the AI itself will be sentient, and there will be trillions of them. And humans will be a tiny fraction of all the minds in the universe, 5 to 20 years. That is his timeline. In that window, the world you live in becomes a world he cannot describe and you cannot imagine. Subscribe. Because by the time most people understand what has happened, the decisions will already have been made, the structures will already be in place, and the window to do anything differently will already be closed.